Morena, Atamari, good morning everyone from the paradise of the world, New Zealand, Aotearoa. I'm here this morning continuing the conversation around International Women's Day, here with an amazing friend of mine and someone I met back in 2012 actually. I'm here with Annette Fale. Good morning, Annette.
Good morning, Rachel. Talofa lava.
Oh, it's great to see you with your beautiful smile.
Yes, it is. It's great to be with you this morning.
And so you're here in Auckland in your office at First Foundation, and I'll get you to introduce yourself. Just a little bit of background about Annette and I. We met, I was running a TEDx event in 2012, and actually Vodafone were very kindly supported us. And so Annette was there, and we've continued the conversation. We've continued to collaborate and also connect on different things, whether it be events and just really supporting each other as women. So Annette is the CEO of First Foundation, and she's very passionate about what she does in that youth space, and specifically around Maori and Pacifica. She's got a real passion. So Annette, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Kia ora. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, well, so I was born here in New Zealand, in Auckland, and I come from a family, New Zealand, all New Zealand European. I have two younger brothers, so there's three of us. My parents still reside here in Auckland, along with my brothers. And yes, I was privileged enough to meet a fantastic young Samoan man at the time. We've obviously grown a little bit older. And so married Ipati, and we have two beautiful children, 8 and 4 years of age. I've always been brought up to believe in anything is possible. And my parents were fantastic role models for that, never stopped me from doing anything that I was passionate about. And so at the age of 16, I actually ventured overseas. I suppose I was probably a little bit bored here in New Zealand with high school, and went overseas to America, to the big wide world, and did my study over there, and then furthered my study at a college in America. And then came back to New Zealand really sort of on the journey of what am I going to do with my life. And when I look back and I reflect, I've actually had the opportunity to work for pretty much in the charitable, not-for-profit space for a number of years now. Worked with the likes of World Vision and for a number of years. And then had the opportunity back in 2001 to found an organisation called the National Young Leaders Days here in New Zealand. And that was all about inspiring young people to become great leaders. And 2 years ago, I finished that up after running it for 14 years, passed the baton on to a younger team to keep it going, and was given this opportunity to come here to First Foundation. And I have been involved with First Foundation for a number of years, mentoring students. So I'm on to my second student now. It's a mentoring sort of partnership for 4 years. And at the time, the person that was in my role said, look, I'm kind of looking at moving on, and would this be something of interest to you? So I thought, why not? It's in my passion area about inspiring young people, about empowering them to believe in themselves, that anything is possible if you put your mind and your heart and your soul to it, and hard work. And so yeah, been privileged enough to be here in this position now for 7 months. And it's a real, I was actually in a meeting this morning saying it's a privilege to do what I love to do. I don't get up in the morning and think going to work is a chore. For me, it's a hobby, and it's a passion of mine to inspire our young leaders in this young generation to actually be well equipped for the years ahead of them. So yes, it's a blessing to do what I do.
Fantastic. And I know you do it with all your heart, all the passion, and I'm very, very inspired, by your work. And how many people have been through the First Foundation program to date?
Yes, so we now currently have over 500 students in the program, and it's been going for 17 years. So it's great now, because what we're seeing is the students that have been through the program now are obviously in established careers or sort of on their pathway to achieving their career, and they have been a First Foundation student. So that's, because we've been around long enough, you start seeing that ripple effect. And the other thing you start seeing is that there is the siblings that were awarded a scholarship maybe 5-10 years ago, now seeing their siblings come through to receive a scholarship. So it's a really, awesome opportunity to be in, because you start seeing that, like I say, that ripple effect of empowering and changing, kids' lives, for the betterment, really, for them, not only for them, but also for their family and their community.
Fantastic. And so when we look at all of the work that you've done, and obviously you've followed your passion, you've made sure that you've stayed, on purpose, on your pathway. As a woman, Annette, going through your journey, from study through to your career, who has inspired you in terms, we're talking about International Women's Day, and everything that we want to celebrate about being women. Who are the woman or the woman who has really inspired you throughout your life?
Yes, well, actually, obviously, doing some of my college experience in America, I was really inspired by reading about a lady called, Maya Angelou, who sadly passed away last year. African American woman, was very strong in her voice, was obviously, well-known author, poet, civil rights activist, really spoke out on behalf of, particularly African American women over there. But, really, I think was inspired by her work for human community, particularly women, but also for their families. And, spent quite a lot of time reading and researching about her. Not a lot of people know who she is, but, someone that I always, for me, and maybe because her actually full name, she's known as is Marguerite Annie Johnson, but most people just know her as Maya Angelou. And I think there was maybe a connection because I saw that Annie Johnson and I used to be Annette Johnson. So I was like, it came a little with me. But obviously not as famous as her by all means, but she, was just someone that I probably, I thought, good on you, you came from nothing, but you've used what you know is good and what you know is right to actually speak out on behalf of others. And so she's definitely one person. And the second one is actually, when I look about and contemplate about people that in my life, I've been privileged to have enough great women come into my life, but is my mum. When I think about my mother, she never stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. She was a strong, courageous leader in her own right. And she was always, she'd always have that tactful way of being able to tell me, yes, okay, that's probably not what I would agree with, but I'm not going to stop you from doing what you are passionate about doing. And both her and my father have been fantastic. And still to this day, we are very close. Mum and I catch up almost every day, whether it be on the phone or in person. And she's been a fantastic person for me, even as I've been a mum, looking at her in terms of how she brought me up and my brothers, and how I am now a mother to my own two young children, and has a very close bond with my young children. So I'm very fortunate enough to have a fantastic mother who's still very much part of my life, and someone that I actually aspire to, and had someone that I could, role model from. So yeah, those are probably the two women, that have really impacted me in different ways.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, I hope that your mum gets to watch this, that she can see you. I'm sure you acknowledge her a lot. It'd be great for her to, to watch you in this video as well, in this interview. So as we look forward, when we look at gender, the gender conversations that continue to go on across the world, what's your view on what's working and maybe what needs more work? And what's your view on the gender equality, gender parity conversation, Annette?
Yes, well, I think a lot of organisations, that I've had the privilege of either working with or going into, you typically don't see a lot of women in senior positions or at, the tables having a conversation. There's been a number of circumstances or situations where I've been in where I have only been the only woman. I just think I love organisations such as Global Women and, YWCA Future Leaders Program, who are empowering women to actually be confident in their own right, have a voice, be known, and don't apologise. I think sometimes, particularly in our culture, we tend to try to sort of almost be apologizing for the fact that we're even there, and yet we've been invited to take part. And so I always, whenever I've been given an invitation to either speak or to be in a position of participating, I always make sure that, one, I'm well prepared, and that, two, I'm present. And as women, it's hard because we've got a million other things going on in our mind, but I think women bring the ability to have an essential, I like to call it sort of a kiti of different skills and different things that we bring to the table. So I'm very much of the fact that gender diversity is so important, because without imagine if we were all the same. Imagine if you walked into a room and there was 12 of me sitting around that table. I can guarantee you that nothing would be really either agreed on or get done, because we're all of the same person, of the same mind. And so I think the ability to have different essential skills and different mindsets at the table to be able to collaborate and to contribute is such a great thing. And I think one advantage of living in a country like New Zealand, where diversity is at the forefront of everything that we do, and it's just out there every day. I think the ability to be able to collaborate with people who can bring different skill sets to the table is in my opinion an amazing opportunity to be in, and I think something that we just need to build on. So I think definitely, so that's I'm all for gender diversity for sure.
Yeah, and I think I was discussing with you before we came on the interview. One of the drivers for this interview series is actually, I've lived abroad 15 years. You've travelled abroad as well. And when I came back to New Zealand, I was actually quite surprised on International Women's Day that there weren't there wasn't the exposure around International Women's Day that I would have expected. I'm very much used to celebrating that particular day, the women that have come before us, the women of the present, and really looking forward to the next generation. So that was one of my drivers, and I'm very passionate about next year making sure that there are more events, more exposure for International Women's Day to the general public. So I think these kinds of conversations continually throughout the year will help people to sort of wake up to, okay, this is actually something globally that people like to celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other question that I've asked all of my interviewees is really about, what is your personal commitment to that gender conversation? What will you do in your everyday life, whether it's your personal or your professional life, that is really going to support that kaupapa, that purpose of gender diversity?
Yes, and good question, and I put some thought into this. I love, there's a Samoan proverb which is probably very close to me, and I've actually got it as a wall print on my wall in my office to remind me on a daily basis, but it goes ole ala ele pole ole tatua, which means the pathway to leadership, or the roadway to leadership, is through service. And what drives me, what is my passion, is basically I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve a generation of leaders that are coming through that aspire to be great in whatever they do, whether it be academic, sport, music, whatever it is that my role is to be a catalyst to help serve those young people, to make sure that they're equipped and ready. And that's only not for the generation now, but it's also for my children, for my children's generation. And so if every morning I can get up and think about what's the ways today in which I can serve the team here that I'm leading, also whether it be friends, colleagues, family, for me that's the important way, because I think there needs to be, with leadership, there's a sort of, I guess, sometimes we can be seen to be leading from the front, which is fine, but if we're not prepared to actually get our hands dirty and sort of in the process, then we're really just another voice or another person, and so I do really believe that serving others is something that I'm personally passionate about, and I think you can do that in a number of ways. And even when it comes to gender diversity, just being at the table and serving and saying, well, what can I do? What is the part that I can play in this puzzle to help us achieve something that's going to be, great, or you know the saying, many hands make light work, you know, but don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Do it because it means something to you. And so I would hope that that continues to be, you know, something that I, you know, aspire to in terms of being able to serve other people around me.
Fantastic. And with First Foundation and the young people who are coming through your program, do you find that there is a mix of girls and boys? Is it dominated in one or the other?
Yeah, good question. It is actually dominated predominantly by females. Very few male students, and so, you know, females always sort of, there's a large pool of them, which you know, I think is great. And so it's really about encouraging some of our male, you know, our young men into aspiring, you know, in terms of these roles. So with our students that come through, over 75% of our students are either Maori or Pacific descent, and come from large families. But you know, with the way that New Zealand's growing in terms of our culture, it's not only going to be Maori Pacific, it's going to be, you know, Asian, you name it. It's going to be such a mixture, a melting pot, you know. But predominantly, yeah, we have definitely more female students than we do males.
Wow, great. And those students, do they have that you have a mentoring program as well, don't you?
Yeah, correct. So when First Foundation was started up by Stephen Carden, who's the founder, his whole idea was about not being a handout, but being a hand up. So the whole idea was to provide full wraparound support for those students. And, you know, there is a number of programs now in New Zealand where they are offering scholarships for students, which is fantastic for them to pursue their academic career. But they don't necessarily have the mentoring or sort of full wraparound support for those students. And so we're finding now students actually being offered scholarships through other programs, actually coming to us and saying, you know, my friend was a First Foundation student and I noticed that she got all the support, you know, along the way. Is there a way that I can be mentored? Because I don't really care about the money. Yes, the money helps, but what I want is someone to walk with me, someone to be with me on this journey and to help me, coach me, encourage me, empower me along the way. And so last year we recruited 80 new mentors to come into our program. And we're always looking for people to partner with us and mentor young people. And so, you know, and those students that actually graduate from the program, it's not so much about graduating from the program, it's actually about graduating with their degree or their tertiary study. They always, without a shadow of a doubt, credit the mentor or the person that actually partnered with them along the way. And I think sometimes the mentoring thing can get a little bit you know, sort of lost in the mix. What is mentoring? What is, you know, I think sometimes we can shy away from it, but really I think everyone has the opportunity to come alongside one. And even if it's just a conversation, you know, on a weekly or fortnightly basis, it doesn't have to be an intense sort of sit down 3-hour meeting. It's just the ability to pick up the phone or Facebook the young person or whatever the right social media channel is to be able to connect with that young person and then know that they've actually got someone who's just there as a voice or an encouragement along the way. So mentoring, huge part of our program and something that we're very fortunate to have. And all our mentors, volunteers.
Yeah.
So
great.
It's a massive part of our family.
And that's how it should happen, you know, in my view, is that you are, you know, you're ready to step into a role of mentor because you want to give back. Yeah, you want to give back to that opu, to that group. So it's great to hear that you have so many, you know, so many women, so many girls going through the scholarship program. I think that's fantastic. It's great that you've got mentors wrapped around supporting them, going on that journey with them. Absolutely. You know, it's the manaakitanga, it's the wraparound that really helps them to get to where they want to be. So how can people get in touch with you, Annette, in terms of First Foundation?
Yeah, so the best way is probably to look at our website, which is firstfoundation.org. And, you know, and there's many ways that you can assist, whether it's be providing a scholarship for a student, whether it's nominating a student for a scholarship, whether it's being a mentor, partnering with us. You know, it's there's sort of many avenues in which way. We also have students that need work experience, for instance, just being able to have an opportunity to work 4 or 5 weeks over a summer period to give them some skills around what it's like to work in, an office or the workforce, so to speak. And so, yeah, I mean, feel free to check out our website with that. And, exciting thing for us, in 2018, we celebrate 20 years of First Foundation. And so I think that's something to be extremely proud of. I think it's great that we still have our founder who's still actively involved to this day, and always gets inspired by hearing the stories of those students that are in the program or have completed the program. So we've got some big milestones ahead of us, but exciting times ahead for us to be celebrating all these young people.
Wonderful. And thank you for supporting me throughout my journey as well. We've stayed in contact since I've been back in New Zealand and Aotearoa. You've always been an email or a phone call away. So I thank you. I thank you for everything that you do for our Maori and Pacifica. And I know it's going to be a more of a melting pot of scholarship students coming forward. And, always here to support. And thank you for being a RISE ambassador. Really important for me to also show the diversity of our ambassadors who are supporting, the indigenous cultures that we find ourselves in Aotearoa, but also globally. So thank you, Annette.
Whakatai lava, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you this morning. I wish you and your whānau a great weekend. As we go into the weekend, a safe weekend, and I know that we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you.
Ka kite.
Kia ora.